The new reboot of the 2016 Powerpuff Girls is out, with about a dozen episodes out to watch, so I think it's time for me to say what I think about it. Because I didn't want to talk about it when only 1 or 2 episodes were out, judging an entire show based off a couple of episodes isn't really fair, and Cartoon Network decided to do 2 weeks where there were new episodes every weekday. So, yay, I guess? Now, before I get into this, remember that the Powerpuff Girls is my favorite cartoon. I mentioned it was one of my favorites back when I talked about the Dance Pants special back in 2014. But after rewatching the entire series again recently, I've decided that the Powerpuff Girls is pretty much my favorite cartoon. And I said back in the Dance Pants video that I think they were working on a reboot, and lo and behold, they actually were. When news started coming out about this reboot, it already had some red flags in it. One being that the original voice actresses for the girls weren't even contacted about reprising their roles, even though almost every other character's VA was. And even then, the VA's delivery in this show is sometimes very off, especially the professor. The mayor sounds alright, but the narrator is barely used, which is a shame because Tom Kenny was great as both the mayor and narrator in the original show. But in this, he seems very underused. Then there's the style of the reboot. Originally, I thought it was going to be like the Dance Pants special, which I had some problems with, but I could deal with. And when images of this reboot came out with the girls, it looked fine. But then the actual previews came out, and people started pointing out animation errors and off-model stills. I mean, it's not like the original Powerpuff Girls didn't have animation errors. It was dealing with animation cells, so there was going to be a little bit. But this new show is done entirely digitally, meaning that errors are much easier to fix, so why weren't they? Also, the original Powerpuff Girls had excellent framing. You saw what needed to be seen and clearly. In this show, it feels like there's too much a lot of the time. And even compared to other Cartoon Network shows currently airing, this show looks cluttered. And there's some animation laziness in certain scenes. There's a point where Princess Morbucks and her crew are literally just scaling up. And there are a lot more perspective shots in this show, but done very poorly. There's a point where prisoners are lined up against bars outside of a prison, but they look really flat. If you want to do perspective, do it. But in a cartoon like this, it's better to just make the scene two-dimensional, including the background. The design of the girls look okay, but the other characters, especially the background characters, look really awful. And they look like they don't belong in this show. They aren't angular like in the original show to contrast with the girls. The original Powerpuff Girls had a very Hanna-Barbera style to it. But this new show is trying to be an Adventure Time style, but still getting that wrong. But all of that, the design choices, the style, everything can be forgiven if the episodes were good. But they are not. They really aren't. They're full of out-of-character moments and really dumb jokes. And I really hate it when Blossom or Buttercup makes a joke, they fist bump each other like it's some confirmation for the writers. And the show constantly does this whispering singing thing that's supposed to be funny, I guess. Like in that episode of SpongeBob where they're playing the Flying Dutchman's board game thing. You know what I'm talking about. Plastic! But this show does it more times than it is funny. In the SpongeBob episode, it was funny because it was one episode. But if you're gonna rely on it, it's going to show that your humor isn't very creative. And the girls in this show are weak. Bubbles actually breaks a bone. And I know people have brought up that she's lost a tooth before, but that's a baby tooth. You're supposed to lose those. You can't really compare that with breaking a bone. And how she breaks it is really lame. All it was some debris from a building. All of the girls have taken much bigger hits than that. The stories and characters in this show are written very, very poorly. The original show was storyboard driven, like a lot of the original Cartoon Network shows, and they were great. And if you want to go script-driven instead of storyboard-driven, that's fine. There are a lot of great script-driven cartoons, but you gotta make them good. I don't know what the writer's previous experience was, but apparently it wasn't much. It seems like they were in a writer's room saying, what are the kids like these days? I don't know, twerking and outdated memes? That's brilliant! Excuse me, don't you think that's a little much? Nah, we'll be fine. People will watch it anyway because of their nostalgia for the original show. And then they have the gall to insert themselves as actual pictures into the show, rather than caricatures. That's not just an insult to Powerpuff Girls, but to cartoons in general. There are points when photos of the actual staff can be funny, but here it was just narcissistic. Then the theme song of this show, though the intro is very well animated, they use lyrics from it whenever the girls are fighting. And it feels very toyetic, especially in the episode of them getting their new aura powers. It's definitely not as memorable as the original instrumental theme that they used throughout the original show. They planned merchandise for this show months before it even aired. The complete opposite happened with the original. It only had merch after it became insanely successful. What I see here is a show based on merchandise not merchandise based on a show. This cartoon lacks what the original had the most of, and that's heart. The original had so much heart put into it, so much that it literally ends with hearts in each episode. This show just ends with a soulless bore of a song that is infantile compared to the original end theme by Biss. This one not only lacks the signature ending of "so once again the day is saved" in most of the episodes, but it also lacks the compassion that made the original so great. I loved the Powerpuff Girls because they were great characters in a fun, fantastic city of Townsville that Craig McCracken and his crew built. And I've rewatched the series many times, and I'm sure I'll watch it again and again, but I can't say the same for this new series. So, those are my thoughts on the reboot. If you want to give your thoughts on the reboot, tell me down in the comments below. And I'll see you next time. Bye. So as I was editing this video, I realized that I completely forgot about a couple of things that I was going to bring up, but I didn't write down. One of them being that they completely got rid of Miss Bellum, and their reasoning for getting rid of her is asinine, saying that they don't think Miss Bellum is right for the show, even though, like, she's one of the smartest characters from the original show. Are you saying that because she has an hourglass cartoon figure in a cartoon, she can't be in the show? And not only that, but they got rid of Miss Keen's semicircle boobs for some reason. Are they just afraid of showing boobs in a cartoon? It's not like they're naked or scantily clad or anything, they're like the most tame boobs in a cartoon ever. Another thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that the characters in the show seem very Flanderized, especially the girls. There's this article with the creators saying that with the original show, all you got from it was that Blossom was a leader and Buttercup was the angry one. But there was a whole lot more to it than that. And ironically, with this show, it seems like they are doing just that, where each of the girls have a trait that is turned up so high that that's all they really are. In this, Blossom is a neat freak, Bubbles has her hardcore self come out way too much, and Buttercup is an extreme tomboy. In the original show, it felt like there was some balance in those traits, but here, there definitely isn't. That's all I wanted to bring up. I just wanted to talk about it because I forgot to talk about it when I was recording. So again, I'll see you next time. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, by now we're getting a bit used to winter. We're like soldiers in the middle of a campaign, growing hardened to discomfort and better able to take